So for the new joiners, let me introduce the course code is 16 CST 63 and the subject title is Object Oriented Analysis and Design. So before entering to this particular subject, let me introduce you what is a necessity for going to study about this particular subject. This is one among the important subject which you will be practicing in your company after you join once as a software engineer. So this is an approach which is mainly used to develop a software. Okay, so whatever software you have, let it be a desktop application, or it may be a mobile application, or it may be some other web-based application. In any means, for any particular application, you will be using a special approach which is titled as Object-Oriented Analysis and Design. So using this has a sequence of 7 or 8 different steps in it. So using that particular steps, you will be developing software. That is a core idea why we are going to have this, and this is a very important paper both in placement point of view and after your placement, after you become as a software engineer. So what is this object oriented analysis and design? This is as the name says, this is a technical approach, so which is mainly used for analyzing and also designing any application. So as I've already said you, an application may be either a web-based application, or it may be some application which is mobile application, anything. Whatever you say in application, you're going to design it, analyze it by using a special component called as object-oriented programming. Okay, object-oriented programming. Now I request any roll number. Satya C. Satya C, unmute yourself.
Ma'am.
Yes. Can you say me what are all the object-oriented programming you have learned until now?
Ma'am, Java.
Yes. Yes. What is the first object-oriented programming you have learned? Before Java? Yes, C++. No, C is not an object-oriented programming. That is what I am trying to say here. C is not an object-oriented programming. C++ is an object-oriented programming concept. Okay, so you may unmute. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so here we are going to apply a special programming concept called as object-oriented programming concept. We'll never use C or Pascal or any other previous languages. Now we are fed on to object-oriented concepts. We'll be applying it. We'll be using, analyzing and designing aspects as per object-oriented analysis and design, and we will be developing the software. That is our main ambition of this particular subject. Before going for this object, now we are using object-oriented programming, analysis and design. But before this, we have used some other approaches called as procedure-oriented approach, and something called as case-based approach, which is called as computer-aided software engineering. That is case-based approach, structural analysis and design. So these are some of the approaches which you have used in your traditional approaches. Many of these approaches have many other drawbacks. To overcome such drawbacks, we have now entered into object-oriented analysis and design. Let me sort out you some of the a comparison between traditional versus object-oriented approach. So there is some network delay. That's why. Yeah, now the slide is visible, I hope so. So this is the difference between traditional versus object-oriented approach. So traditional approach mainly focuses on procedures or something called as functions. Okay, so procedures will be given with the utmost importance. For example, if you take, if you want to design a calculator, the algorithm, first thing is that you will be writing the aim, you will be designing the algorithm. So the algorithm will be given with the first importance. But in OOAD, the combination of data and functionality, both will be given with the 100% importance. So data is comparatively important when compared to that of the functionality. That is the first difference. Second difference is that, as I already said, traditional approaches focus mainly on functions only. Okay, but the next approach called as OOAD, it concentrates on both data and also its corresponding value. That is a second major difference. So in traditional, you have only functions, will be concentrating only on function, but for OOAD, you will be concentrating on data and also its values. So due to this particular idea, there is an increased complexity, and this one traditional approach is totally time consuming. But the next one is called as OOAD, where we have decreased complexity and also we can quickly program it. And the last difference is that your traditional approach is having increased that is redundancy will be always more in traditional concept, but in OOAD we have totally reduced the redundancy. So that is the difference between traditional and OOAD approach. Just taking few time. Yes. Now, the need of OOAD, that is some of the advantages why we are going for OOAD is that we have high level of abstraction. So here, one of the major advantage of going for OOAD is abstraction. So, Valarmati, yes, unmute yourself. Yes, Valarmati, are you there? R. Nitin?
Yes, ma'am.
Valarmati, yes. So what is abstraction? Can you define it?
Yes, ma'am.
Any idea do you have about abstraction? Just say me whatever you know. That is enough. It need not be right or wrong. Yes, ma. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. What is abstraction?
மேம் அப்ஸ்ட்ரக்ஷன் வந்து ஒன்லி டிக்ளரேஷன் மட்டும் தான் மேம் பண்ண முடியும், டிஃபைன் பண்ண முடியாது மேம்.
Okay, that is called as abstract class. That is not the case. Here I'm asking about the properties of abstraction. But anyhow, thank you. A good try. Bhanumati, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Can you define what is abstraction?
Classes and objects.
Classes and objects? No, that's not. You're not even attempting to answer. But anyhow, students, see here, your level of, knowledge regarding to OOAD is very low. Placement la kandipa OOAD questions will be asked frequently. So these 4 major concepts will be there in OOAD. So understand the basic terminologies. That's very, very important. So till now you have learned only for marks, but from now onwards, you should learn, or you should study the subject targeting towards your placement. Okay, so and also for your project also. So next semester you will be dealing with projects. There also you will be using all these phases in OOAD for developing any project. So concentrate well on this particular paper. This is a very easy paper, but you need utmost concentration. Okay, so here we have higher level of abstraction. So what is the definition of abstraction is that abstraction means going to concentrate on the essential attributes of an object and leaving away the unnecessary attributes. See here, the classes is totally recorded. So, later onwards, you can download this and you may read, you may listen to the class again. Okay, so, முக்கியமான notes எல்லாமே எடுத்துக்கங்க. If you feel whatever important for definition இருந்தா note பண்ணி வச்சுக்கோங்க. So put a separate note for OOAD, note everything over there. Okay, so write down during the class itself, because these are important terminologies. I'm repeatedly saying this will be asked frequently in your placement interviews. Okay, so the meaning of abstraction is that focusing on essential attributes of an object. Okay, on properties of an object and leaving away the unnecessary aspects. So this we can discuss using an example later. Okay, and the second advantage of OOAD is promotion of reusability. So here we are trying to reuse the concept again and again. You no need to develop any particular software or any particular code right from scratch. we can reuse if that is already available for some other software called as X. For some other software Y, if you need some components which is ditto of X, you can simply call the functions, which is called as reusability. That is also there in OOAD, and it is easier to adapt to changes. Okay, so OOAD can, if any particular requirement is changing here and there, we can easily adapt it. That is another advantage, and it is totally more robust. Robust means it is scalable. That is, if you increase the components, if you increase attributes, or if you increase the functions, again it will be still working. It will never fail due to the expansion. That concept is called as robust. And finally, it is very easier to maintain. So these are the advantages of going for OOAD. Now we'll get into what is object orientation. So here the definition says that we are going to think whatever we develop, we'll do in object perspective. Okay, we'll be defining everything by means of something called as objects. So that is called as object orientation. The name itself is clearly saying you object orientation means whatever you develop, whatever you see, you will think, you will see in object perspective. Okay, for every object, we will be having two major things. One is called as behaviors, and the other one is called as properties. Okay, so the other name for behavior is called as process, methods, and functions. And the other name for properties is called as data, attributes, or even state. So any particular thing which is physically existing in this world, which have data and also function, is defined as object. That is a literal definition of what is an object. Okay, so anything, whichever you see in your day-to-day life, your mobile is an object, your PC is an object, your laptop is an object, even sofa, any particular component, your door, anything is called as an object. But it should have two major components. One is called as behavior, other one is called as property. So behavior means functions. For example, if you take a laptop, I can shut down the laptop, I can on the laptop, I can charge the laptop. So these are some of the functions. If you take properties, the size of the laptop, the color, its configuration, all these are called as properties. So any particular thing which is physically existing in this world, I can touch and feel abdina, it is called as an object. So it has both properties and behaviors. Okay, and collection of such similar objects is called as class. So we can go with an example to define what is a class and object later. So as of now, object orientation is a problem solving method. So here our idea is to analyze a problem and solve a problem. You are going to give a software solution, okay, which is called as a software solution, which is going to reflect objects in the real world. So this is a literal definition of what is object orientation. Students, any doubt until now? Nitin R.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Any doubt?
No, ma'am, it's clear.
It's clear. Now, can you differentiate what is an object and what is a class? Yes, Nitin. What is an object?
Ma'am?
Yes, what is an object?
Object instance of class, ma'am.
Very good. Object can be an instant of class. Good. Then what is a class?
Ma'am, class template for ma'am object create பண்றதுக்கு யூஸ் ஆகுது.
Okay. That is, class is a group of objects with common attributes and properties. Okay.
Oh.
Yes. Unmute. So this is mute. So this is the definition of what is a class and an object. Okay. So this we can discuss classes and objects by using a real-time example. Consider we have three things like this. Okay. This is a truck, car, and bus. So these are physical objects which are really existing in the real world. That's why I'm defining this as objects. So there are some common parameters between these particular objects. For example, truck, car, Bus, I can travel. This is something called as which is used for transport. Okay, that's why. So these, I mean, three particular objects are grouped together to form something called as vehicle, or I can also say it as automotive. Any name you can give. So such particular, I mean, grouping is called as what? Class. So car, truck, bus will have common properties and common functions inside it. That's why we can group these three things together under vehicle or automotive component. So this is an example which focuses on, I mean, in an outer, in an external perspective. But when you go internally, that is when you people are software engineers, when you go in programming perspective, so what are all the properties and functions which is present inside these objects? Kindly hold on 2 minutes to open the slide. Hope the next slide is visible to you. So here, some of the properties and functions of truck will be, it is having a common color. I mean, the color is a property. Okay, there is no, it's not common actually. The property is common. That's what I'm saying. So if you take a truck, the truck can be defined by using color. Similarly, car, I can define using color. And also for bus also, there will be a special attribute called as color. Similarly, for 3, we have vehicle number, number of seats, load capacity, model number, etc. So all these parameters are called as what? Properties. And remember, these properties are common for all these particular objects. That's why I'm grouping these 3 together to form one particular class. Okay, and what are the functions here? Using truck, I can carry load. Similarly, car also can carry load, and bus also can carry load. Similarly, I can start engine, stop engine, load the fuel, and display the meter. So these are the common functions which is again present for all the 3 different objects. That's why I'm grouping together these 3 to form something called as a class and objects. Okay, so we can see by using how this is reflected in program. Abdina, here you can see a slide. So here I am having a class called as vehicle. Okay, so here the properties are described like this. So here, for example, I'm using Java for in your entire course. I'll be using Java as a object-oriented programming for explaining you the concepts. Okay, so here the above mentioned properties can be defined in Java as string color, integer, that is vehicle number, number of seats, load capacity, and model number, etc. And the functions will be return type is void, and start engine, some function attributes over here, and stop engine, some core functions over here. Okay, so this is how a class is defined in a program. Similarly, now how the objects can be defined by using like mean statements like this. Okay, so how this is displayed? For example, class name followed by object name, which is equal to new keyword, and followed by class name. So in Java, we used to define objects like this. So vehicle now is a class which have common attributes and common functions, and the objects such as lorry, car, and bus can be declared for a particular existing class. Now, using lorry, I can access all the parameters. And using car also, I can access all the parameters. And for using bus also, I can access all the parameters. So this is how class and objects exist in real world. Now, remember, this class and object, how it is dealt in the previous one, what we have discussed is using a real-time example. But now remember, you're going to develop a software for student mark processing system. So in such a case, you will be now considering each and every student as an object. Now the students will have common attributes such as name and then roll number, mark 1, mark 2, mark 3. So using these marks, I'm going to program to develop a mark processing system. Okay, so these are some of the attributes and functions. Let it be get details and display details. For example, 2 functions are concentrated over here. Now each and every student, they are physically existing. Those students will be considered as objects. So how to define them? Just say this. So we have student, which is followed by Roll number, which is equal to new student. So this is how you will be defining objects for student class. So every student like 17 BCS or 18 BCS, whatever it is, BCS not 1 will be object 1. This is object 1. And here the second object is not 2. And third object is 3. So each and every student object, using every student object, I can access the parameters which is present in the class and the functions which is again present in the class. So whenever you can, so for example, using number 1, I can access name, roll number, etc., get details, display details, etc. Now, when memory and references are how it is addressed inside your CPU, abdina. So remember, I'm having 3 different objects. 17 BCS not 1. This is object 1, object 2, and similarly object 3. So using object 1, I can access, that is a separate memory location will be created for with the string attribute called as name and integer called as roll number, mark 1, mark 2, mark 3. Similarly, a separate reference will be created for both the functions called as get detail and display detail. Similarly, for the second roll number and also for third roll number, we have separate memory references for all the attributes and all the functions. Okay, hope it is clear to you. Next is object-oriented principles. So these are the 4 major object-oriented principles we have. One is called as abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism. So these 4 concepts, what you do is that you refer the internet and get idea of what are these 4 parameters. This is the 4 important principles of object-oriented concepts. Okay, so as I've already said you that abstraction means concentrating on the important aspects and neglecting the unnecessary aspects. This is called as abstraction. Encapsulation is also called as data hiding. Okay, covering the data, protecting the data. Okay, as the name says, it is something like capsules. Okay, so protecting the data is called as encapsulation. And inheritance, you all know, it is a property of accessing a parent class attributes by the child class also. That is called as inheritance. And finally, polymorphism, using the same function for many different purposes, is called as polymorphism. So the idea of all these 4 concepts we'll be discussing later in your classes. Okay, in your next main class, I'll be discussing about this. Now we'll get into the next important concept, which is called as phases in object-oriented analysis and design. So remember, whenever you're going to develop any particular project, okay, any application, mobile or web, or even any desktop application, you'll be having these many phases, which is divided into 7 modules. First one is called as requirement specification. Second is, so here user will be called, that is clients will be called, and we'll be discussing with the clients and we'll be getting the requirement for the particular software. And second is analysis. In analysis, what you do is that you define, you understand the classes and objects which is present in the particular requirement. And third is called as design. You develop diagrams in design phase, sorry. And fourth is called as implementation. So here you will be developing the code. And next is testing. You check whether the code which is implemented is correctly functioning or not. Once all the phases is over, your software is said to be developed. Okay, so after developing, you're going to install the software in the corresponding location. Either it may be client side, server side, or it may be a proxy side, anything. Just installing the software in the particular PC is called as deployment. And finally, you have maintenance. So this is a lifelong activity. So designing a software and also maintaining it. There may be some problems occurring in the particular project later onwards. So maintenance of this is called as maintenance. So this is a lifelong activity. So your course outcome, that is your syllabus, is grouped according to the different phases of software development. So first CO1 is applying object-oriented concepts for gathering and validating user requirements. So when you see the syllabus, the first particular unit will be focusing on how to get the requirements, how to identify the requirements from the end user, and defining the requirements in a special document which is called as SRC. Okay, sorry, SRS. And the second one unit is going to focus on diagrams, which is called as development of use case modeling. Third one is analysis phase. So the first 2 units will be concentrating on gathering requirements and understanding the core of what you're going to do in your software. Third unit focuses on analyzing. So here also you will be drawing a set of diagrams, but the idea is to analyze the classes and objects. And fourth is designing phase. So here also you will be get into the particular class and then you will be designing the classes and make it ready for implementation. And fifth one is you're going to develop the functional object oriented software. So you will be implementing, testing and deploying. So all the next of the phases will be focused in your fifth unit. So this is your unit wise introduction and the COs which you will be focusing on. And remember students, so the lab component of this will be going in parallel with the subject. So in lab component also you're going to develop, the idea of the lab component is you will be developing a software based on based on any software you can develop, or I will be giving you a software for developing. So for any software, you're going to first get the requirements and then you will be drawing the use case modeling, followed by you will be analyzing, designing, and also you will be writing the code to develop the software. So again, the previous phases will be used in order to develop the software in your lab component also. Okay. And what you do is that for lab component, what you do is that I request you people to divide yourself among 3 students per group. So in a group, you can have 3 students. So 60 students will be your total strength. So this will be divided into 20 groups. Okay. So based on this, I will be assigning some, applications to you. So you 3 will be in a team. You will be together working for a particular software. Okay, so next class or through mail or even my WhatsApp number is there. So to my WhatsApp number privately, you just give your roll numbers whom you're going to get together to work in a team. Okay, just 3 persons per team, not more than that. Okay, so that's what my next expectation is. Okay, and some of the references, 2